I was just looking at the origin and authority of the Department of the Navy. Yes. The naval affairs of the country began with the War for Independence, the American Revolution. Yes. On the 13th of October of 1775, Congress passed legislation forming a committee to purchase and arm two ships. This, in effect, created the Continental Navy. Two battalions of Marines were authorized on the 10th of November of 1775. The Marines. Did you know that the Marines and the Navy, they were working together back then in 1775? Under the Constitution of the First Congress on the 7th of August, 1789, assigned responsibility of naval affairs to the War Department. It seems that this Navy's been around a long time. Now, the responsibility and authority of the Department of Navy are vested in the Secretary of the Navy and are subject to reassignment and delegation by the Secretary. The Secretary is bound by the provisions of law. You would think there was a binding of the provisions of law. Wouldn't it be something if every Secretary of the Navy the direction of the President, the Secretary of Defense, along with all persons in charge of government agents, regulations, certain non-defense agents, their respective areas of function or responsibility. Now, there's some sort of binding as a Secretary of the Navy. Yes. Could you get me those secretaries of the various departments of the United States military? Now, I have documented that my civil rights are being violated, that my sons were taken from me without any jurisdiction or authority of law. Yes. And then Clallam County in the state of Washington decided that they weren't going to enforce an actual judicial proceeding that expunged and dismissed the case against me. Yes. And every time I email somebody in law enforcement, they all act like I'm the exception to the rule. Now, of the last 40 years of secretaries of each and every department of the military, and then, of course, the Secretary of the Department of Defense, Robert Gates, you and the wife decided to fast this week. Good for you! How is your big-titted wife right now? Well, I think that every Secretary of the Department of Defense needs to have a week of fasting and 2 days of pumpkin pie. Now, I know Leon Panetta. He's a former Secretary of the Department of Defense, isn't that correct? Yes. And then there was, just get me the last 40 years of every Secretary of the Department of Defense that thought this would be a good week. Good week. Good week.